Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Out here today, it's 110 degrees in Arizona in near July, and the object of our discussion is the hot, may I just dare say that, Infiniti QX60 Lux all-wheel drive. So I'm going to show it to you inside now. We're going to get in real quick with the air conditioning and take it for a drive. Then I'm going to tell you what I really think. For 2022, the Infiniti QX60 is completely redesigned from the ground up. It has a more brawny, square shoulder look than before. And note that this is also based on the Nissan Pathfinder, which is also new for 2022, completely redesigned. This is built on the same exact assembly line as the Pathfinder in Smyrna, Tennessee. As tested, we're at $57,000 and some change. This is a Lux all-wheel drive model, which is dead center of the trim grade lineup from low to high. So you can spend quite a bit less on this. You can spend quite a bit more on this. Talking about the styling, even though this is completely redesigned from the ground up, looking at the face, there is no question this is an Infiniti. It has the familial charm. The grille, lots of detail. I like that they put Infiniti in block lettering across the bottom. And look at those headlights. Those have some punch. LED adaptive headlights and the daytime signature lights. They almost look like this animalistic glow coming through the forest at night, sort of just peering at you. Definitely going to be seen when you're coming down the road during the daytime or at dusk. Lower fascia has plenty of detail as well, and you can see some of the radar equipment in there that keeps this thing safe going down the road. Coming around the corner, you've got 20-inch alloy wheels on this particular model, and they've got quite a bit of detail in them. I like a lot of the little details that they've offered here in the styling. Down on the lower rocker, you can see Infiniti printed in that lower plastic. Not a big deal, but it adds a little bit of extra. I really want to point out the shoulder line here at the back. Gone is the old dogleg rear window design in previous Infinitis, and something a little bit more classy in the way the chrome trim and that rear three-quarter view comes together. It's very Range Rover-esque in its silhouette, and I think it works very well here. It's original, yet sort of a formal and classic looking profile. And those LED taillights, the way they wrap into this silhouette at those corners, I think really set it off. Good job, Infiniti. Now, this is of course a power liftgate. You'd expect that in this price range, down in the lower fascia. Not so much detail, but no fake exhaust tips either. Again, kudos to Infiniti. And lastly, underneath you're going to find a mini spare tire. Great thing to have on an SUV instead of a fix-a-flat kit. All right, now I'm inside where the air conditioning feels so good because it's really hot today. The interior of the QX60 is very well done. I'll just put that right out there to start with. There are a lot of soft trims that wrap virtually every surface that your body touches, the armrest, the center console, up on the top ends of the doors and across the dash. Now, other trim grades have even nicer soft trims than this, but for the mid-grade, this is very nicely done. It's classy, it looks expensive. As far as amenities are concerned, a lot of stuff to talk about. Leather wrapped steering wheel with paddle shifters, good high quality switch gear. Ahead of it, a 12.3-inch completely digital instrument cluster. You can customize that in any numbers of ways. And in the center, a 12.3-inch infotainment screen. Down here on the center console is a fully touch capacitive. It's almost like a touch screen, but it's actually a hard panel and it has reactive touch, so you can actually feel it click when you touch it. The entire control panel for the HVAC and a number of other things. A little bit of the infotainment controls there too as well. This has beautifully stitched leather seats. They're very comfortable, power for both the passenger and the driver. And here we also have heating and ventilation for these seats. The center console is very nicely laid out. I have a place right up front for my phone, a little cubby, and there are ports to plug in. Here is the electronic shifter. Now, I will tell you that this shifter is not the easiest one to use out there. At the car wash, for instance, getting it to go into neutral on the fly was a bit of a panic at first because it's not that intuitive. I'd really love to see a regular lever that just has detents, but it's better than the knob in my opinion. Start-stop button on the center console to the next of it, and drive mode selector, and then you've got a controller back here for the infotainment system. Storage inside here is actually pretty generous. It's a little bit more than a square tissue box. It's very deep, and it actually has a little bit of a nook around to the right, so you can put some extra things down there. It's a nice level of storage. There's also a 12-volt port down inside there. Above my head is a panoramic sunroof with an opening front section. Very nice. I like to keep them closed here in the summer, but in the wintertime it's beautiful if you happen to be up in the mountains so you can see, and it really lends a nice airy atmosphere to this interior. Of all the three-row SUVs that I've sat in the last year or so, this one really checks all the boxes. It's got a lot of space, it's got a lot of comfort and ease of use. This second row seat has a nice high seating position. I've got plenty of leg room. These seats set for my height, about 5'8" with my tennis shoes on, and these seats actually adjust. They slide fore and aft, and that's important because that third row can have almost as much legroom as your second row passengers if you balance this out just right. And putting the seat forward to get into that third row, it's a push of a button, that easy. It goes forward on its own, and look at all the space back there. You can actually put adults back there. It's not just for kids. The seat's set up for 2 people, and it is also high off the floor, so you can get your feet down underneath the second row. These all fold down as you'd expect, and with all of the seats folded down, you've got a flat load floor and 75.4 cubic feet of storage. And underneath the floor in that rear cargo hold is some deep well storage that you can throw your wet, muddy gear into or store things away that you don't always get into. As far as amenities are concerned, there are plenty back here, especially with this trim grade. There are air vents in the ceiling for the second and the third row, and controls for the HVAC down on the lower console. A complete set of controls that really help your rear seat passengers dial everything in the way they want it. Plenty of charging ports down there as well. Another nice item are the sunshades for the rear doors right here, and you also have a fold down armrest with cup holders right there. Like I said, checks all the boxes. The interior on this, as I've said more than once, really checks all the boxes when it comes to a luxury SUV. It's got the quality, it's got the design, it has the feature content, and most important, it has the comfort and versatility. A lot of storage, and you can literally sit here all day long and never get tired of these chairs. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here comes standard with a 12.3-inch screen. This has the optional performance audio system, which means Bose audio with 17 speakers, has an awesome sound. I got to tell you that. It really sounds good. A lot of features going on here. We have a full surround view monitor for backing up and going forward. The cameras light up in all directions. The menu layouts are pretty decent. Takes a little bit of a learning curve, but works well. I like the fact that it's very easy to see because of its size. You can have different panels here, be it your map, your audio, and the menus. This does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The Apple CarPlay is wireless, but the Android Auto is not. You got to plug that in, and that sucks if you're getting in and out of your car all the time and you happen to use those things. So gets a little bit of a dock on connectivity there. Otherwise, this is a very well done system. The audio quality is absolutely amazing. Overcomes a lot of other things that I might complain about here. This system gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, finally, let's take a drive. Now, if you watch my reviews, you know the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're out here in the middle of nowhere. We're gonna stop, and I'm gonna nail it. Nice sound, very refined, and 60. One of the things I really like about this powertrain now especially is that with this 3.5 liter V6, they've finally given it back, I would say, a traditional automatic transmission. 9 speeds that we have here now instead of the old CVT. That is a major improvement for drivability and enjoyment, and of course, sound. The VQ V6, which has been around for quite a while, now has 295 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque in this trim. The 9-speed automatic transmission does a very good job, much better than the 9 speeds of the past. It doesn't have a lot of the weirdness that they've been known for, and it does have paddle shifters here, which seem to work pretty good at giving me some downshifts, but you know, they do have limitations, but they're nice, especially if you happen to be towing or pulling grades, things like that out in the mountains. You can really have some control over how this is behaving. This is rated by the EPA at 20 miles per gallon city, 25 highway, and 22 combined. Now, in my week with it, not so much. I ended up with about 18 miles per gallon. In its defense, a lot of stop and go traffic, and the air conditioner's on full time, which means the auto start-stop system really never engaged. Now, in my own opinion, that's a good thing because I don't like auto start-stop. Yuck. But when it comes to fuel economy, it's not stepping in there and helping. So it was kind of a push. And when you add this fuel efficiency into the fact that this requires premium fuel, or at least recommends it to get the posted horsepower numbers, ouch. You can run regular fuel, but it drops from 295 down to 284 horsepower. So at these prices today, if you want full horsepower, you have to spend up. And you don't have to do that with a lot of the competition that has the same or more horsepower. That's a pretty big deal. This powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. Ride and handling in the Infiniti QX60 is very surprisingly peaceful experience. It's very quiet. One of the things I found out when we did our decibel test on the freeway at 70 miles an hour, it is one of the quietest gasoline-powered vehicles that we've tested here at Test Driven TV. 70 mile an hour average, 55.2 decibels. That's very quiet. Very little, if any, wind noise that I could detect with my ears, and very little road noise. And that's pretty commendable given the fact that this has got some pretty big wheels and tires. Out on the back roads on these curves, I find that the steering has a nice communicative feel. It's light, not too heavy. Now, you do have drive modes that when you dial them up to sport, for instance, that does make the steering feel a little bit heavier, but the normal automatic mode, it has a nice balance to it. Now, this does have strut front suspension and a multi-link rear suspension, which is pretty typical in this class. I find generally that it does a good job of controlling the body motions. This doesn't have a lot of bounciness and pitching going over rougher surfaces. And in my neighborhood on the speed humps, those speed humps that you go over on neighborhood streets to keep you at speed, you can blow over those things at the posted speed limit, and it doesn't feel like the suspension is anything less than robust. Out on the highway at speed, this has a nice comfortable feel, and been pretty windy here in Phoenix this week, and I haven't really noticed that this is highly susceptible to crosswinds. But like any SUV, what I really want to find out is how does it handle off the pavement? Woo! And that brings us to the desert washboard road. And I love to bring an SUV or a crossover vehicle out here because this is a real test of how well this is built, how well the chassis is tuned to isolate the rough stuff. After all, they tell us we can bring it out here. It better darn well not feel like a big POS. And I'm happy to say out here on this rough surface that this doesn't. All the composure and refinement that this chassis shows me on the pavement carries through out here when things get a little bit rough. Now, yes, we're not doing hardcore off-roading, but this ribbed surface on the slippery gravel road is a great way to show us how well bolted together the trim in here is, how well bolted together the steering and the suspension is. Do I have any rattles, any shakes, any crazy cheapness going on here on the interior? And the fact is, I just don't, just as I expected. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. I like it so far. I like the way it drives. I love the interior and the styling. I'm pretty impressed with, especially over the last generation. But how does it compare to the other vehicles that you can buy out there? And I'm talking about Lincoln. I'm talking about Genesis. You can even look at some of Hyundai's work. Kia. I mean, There are a lot of competitors here. Lexus. Now the thing to really look at is at this price, we're just under $60,000 as tested. You can spend less, you can spend more. This is also based on the Nissan Pathfinder, very closely mechanically identical. And in that way, it drives exactly the same and costs about $10,000 to $15,000 less. However, here, for that money, you get elevated style, elevated feature content, and elevated quality, particularly on the interior. Now, when I look at things like warranty, here we're actually in a pretty good space. We are at 4 years, 60,000 miles bumper to bumper, and 6 years, 70,000 miles for powertrain. That's very good coverage out there. And so when I put all of that together with the safety equipment that's offered, and I'm talking about the passive and active safety equipment, the driving aids, things like that, the IIHS rates that stuff as excellent or superior. They haven't done their full crash test yet, so I don't have anything to say about that. But based on what's out there right now, safety equipment here is top notch. So I put value at 5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, that gives us a 4.5 out of 5 star for our total review. Excellent. Definitely worth a look if you're out there shopping for a luxury 3-row SUV. Now, if you like what we do here, I highly encourage you to follow us on social media. You can see that down below on all the major channels, Test Driven TV across the board. See our latest video right there, our latest test drive or news review. And you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. Either way, stay tuned.